That alone, verse number 65. Nothing exists here that we have not known once. Veiled by form, all this is not wakefully known. Being boundless, there is no one who knows. Who is there to know this dear wonder? Alas, it is strange. Commentary. In one of Plato's dialogues, Socrates makes the same point as Narayanaguru puts forth here. He says, "The soul, since it is immortal, and has been born many times, and has seen all things both here and in the other world, has learned everything that is. So we need not be surprised if it can recall the knowledge of virtue or anything else which, as we see, it once possessed. All nature is akin, and the soul has learnt everything, so that when a man has recalled a single piece of knowledge, learnt it in ordinary language, there is no reason why he should not find the rest, if he keeps a stout heart and does not grow weary of the search. And learning are in fact nothing but recollection." From his dialogue Meno, 81d. Socrates is very helpful in bringing out 2 points: that there is nothing in the world which we do not know, and that we believe that we know only very little. He says it just about as well as it can be said. Many things are so perplexing that we don't even see the remotest possibility of someday understanding them. For instance, you might pick up Bertrand Russell's Principia Mathematica, but from just looking at the cover, you will put the book down again. The cover design is such that it baffles your mind. When you open it and see the bizarre symbols with which it is filled, you imagine you could never understand even 1 page of it. But after all, it was written by a man just like us. If it were totally impossible, we would not have attempted it. So if we were to take the time to decode all the symbols and study the arguments, eventually it would begin to make sense to us. Narayanaguru says here that everything has been known to us at least once. His approach to the problem is different from Socrates, but the basic principle is the same. Socrates believes that if you did not already know something, you could never give your opinion. It was not immediately known to you only because you didn't recollect it. The Guru's idea is that what you experience is an effect produced by a complex situation. In the stream of consciousness, new configurations of percepts and concepts are continuously arising. When we are presented with a new structure that looks different from anything previously encountered, we are momentarily puzzled. There is some familiarity, and yet we come to an impasse. We have the feeling we don't understand the situation. We don't know what is being presented. Just what is it that is being presented to us in the first place? Either sense data or concepts. Sense data means we are seeing something, such as a figure. Say I am seeing a shape before me. I see some color in it. I know the figure must have content, that it is 3-dimensional. So much is immediately presented to me. Still, I do not recognize what the figure is. Then I put on my reading glasses and realize it is a human being sitting there. But even after finding out it is a person, I still don't recognize who it is. I put on my other glasses. Now the shape becomes more distinct. I can see it is so and so. In any configuration, there are certain priorities. There is something more distinctive about shape than color, for instance, and something more distinctive about the content than either shape or color. We perceive color, form, and content, but we can give priority to any element. If we emphasize them wrongly, the elements no longer reveal things, but actually conceal them. They act to obstruct our recognition. What we see here as forms is the formal recognition of those things with which we have associated in the present life. Those with which we have not associated in this life look strange, so we think of them as unknown. Even the known element in them comes to seem unknown. This brings a creepy sense of strangeness to our mind, which is one of the tragedies of the visual world. The content we perceive in all given situations is consciousness, nothing else. The configurations are within your consciousness, aren't they? And the consciousness is all yours, isn't it? Yet suddenly you have forgotten whether or not the consciousness is yours because of the strange-looking configuration within it. You have drifted from a totally known situation to a seemingly unknown one. If you sit with your eyes closed and look into yourself, look for what is unfamiliar. There is this consciousness, this awareness. It is not awareness of anything as such. It is just awareness. Within that awareness, we observe certain movements. Things are moving, changing. There is also the passage of time, but that is also consciousness. The simplest consciousness has a tendency to weave fragmentary notions out of itself. These modulations arise like ripples on the surface of water. Now go back from the wave to water, from the form to the sight, from the sight to the act of seeing, and from the act of seeing to the seer. If you go back in this way, from the modulation to the consciousness from which it arises, you are going from the effect to the cause. Every bit of it is consciousness. From a pluralistic perspective, it may seem that everything is not known to you, but if you look at it from the causal side, you being the whole consciousness, it is clear that everything is known. Socrates goes further in emphasizing that everything is in fact known even in a pluralistic way. Another philosopher who presents this idea is Bergson. He asks, what do you do when you listen to a person who is expounding a complex idea to you? Like the most difficult of problems in mathematics or philosophy, how do you understand what you hear or see demonstrated? When someone makes a certain statement and you say, I don't understand, what do you mean by that? What you mean is, when they speak a sentence, you have to structure concepts in your mind that are equivalent to the words that they have said. Then you put together all the concepts to make an ensemble or a meaningful gestalt. If at this point meaning does not arise in you, however, you say you are lost. You are not really taking anything from the other person in your discussion, but it's good they have spoken because it gives you an occasion to make a meaningful structure using the order in which they put their word images. So many concepts are lying scattered around in you, and their words are only an occasion for you to pick these up, or rather recall concepts already known to you. Once you get your images organized, you can say, I understand. If you still insist you do not understand, then the person who is explaining goes from one part of his statement to another, recasting his explanation by bringing new word images together. At last you say, oh, I get it. In your way of configuring, I didn't realize that the first word had associations with this and this other word, and this concept was associated with this other concept, which I already understood. Why didn't you just say so at first? Part of it was concealed. That's why it didn't immediately make sense. Recast it and it becomes quite clear. So even in understanding the individuated forms of things, you are using your own hidden concepts. Nothing new is ever used, but there are ever so many possibilities of reorganizing ideas so that they look new. You can always create complex situations, and you can also understand all complex situations. From the causal side of everything being consciousness, and you also being that consciousness, nothing can ever be foreign to you. From the side of the logician as well, you can prove that all manifestations are nothing more than variations in the structuring of concepts. If they are put in a way that is familiar to you, you can go on annexing all the unknown areas until they are all known. And there is a third way of putting this idea, as presented by biologists. Although Schrödinger is not a biologist, but a physicist, taking science as a whole, he very clearly demonstrates how everything is in everything else. The whole matter of this universe is the same. When you structure it, it changes its character. Quantitative variations cause qualitative change. Until recently, it was believed that there was a conservation of energy and all transformations happened within it. Even this notion has recently been exploded, and now it is believed that things can come out of total nothingness. Thus, even the difference between existence and non-existence has been effaced in modern physics. So we can approach this problem from the point of view of the contemplative, that of the logician or psychologist, or that of the physicists, biologists, or chemists. Whatever way we choose, it brings us to a sense of oneness with the whole world. There is, though, one difficulty we should appreciate. When I sit with my eyes closed, how big is my world? Does it have only the spatial dimension of my skull? Or do I sense an unhindered, unobstructed world? Certainly I feel no barrier to my mind because of having a skull around my brain. My world is as big as anybody's. In fact, it is definitely large. But when I open my eyes, my world suddenly becomes limited. Isn't it strange? Now, as I'm only in the living room, I am limited to whatever I see here. My seeing something actually conceals everything else. The kitchen is concealed, the bathroom is concealed, my study is concealed, all by what I see. The Guru puts this as Uru Matraval. Because of the body obstructing the sight of other bodies, you do not see everything wakefully. Wakefully here means if I am awake and read something and it makes sense, there is a great certitude, a great clarity. Such certitude doesn't come to me about my oneness with everything, because some form is standing before me, occupying my attention. In this way, I am redirected from the universal to the particular. The Guru says that because of this, you do not know what you are missing. As this dear wonder is boundless, who is there to know it? Alas, it is strange. What you miss is the very dear self. You are like a person who is sleeping with a great treasure under his pillow. If only you knew, but instead you feel so haggard and hungry and weary and poverty-stricken. This verse should make you bold, happy, and very enterprising. Bold in the sense that nothing can be hidden from you. You already know everything, but this knowledge is to be made certain. in the language in which your mind understands it. There is a difference between having a knowledge and recognizing it. The only difference between a seer, a realized person, and an unrealized person is that though they both have the wisdom, one recognizes it with certitude and the other is still fumbling. It's not that he doesn't have it. In fact, he is it. When he looks into the mirror, he sees his beard, or she sees her funny face. They think, how can I be that? How can I be the Supreme, the Absolute? Am I not that little mouse? You are not the little mouse, that's only your form. Knowing there is nothing other than you, whatever your form, emboldens you, makes you fearless. You also become enterprising once you understand there is the possibility to go from the lack of recognition to the recognition of your inner vastness. You can not only be, you can recognize yourself to be. What we are given here is not just a generalization, but how in the very world of the effect, the particular, the individuation of things, you can relate yourself to that absolute, bringing the totality to bear upon what is presented here and now. And of course, happiness is a natural outgrowth of this increased understanding and identification with absolute values. With this verse, we close the fall term. In January, we will commence the next section. We have 35 verses to go. This was certainly a wonderful experience for all of us to gather in the mornings and sit together and commune. Not all the days were alike, and everything you heard might not have been so inspiring. But here and there something must have gone deep into you. That little bit which strikes home, that makes a flicker of recognition and continues to shimmer in us, is enough to give us some direction in life. There is no need to learn each verse and then rationally apply it in everyday life. You can even hear it and forget it. Forgetting means it only goes deeper into you. Once you have heard it, it will go and work its way by itself. The effect will be very subtle. It comes almost without your knowing that it is something which you heard that is enabling you to see things in a new light or make resolutions in a certain more helpful way. Nothing is ever lost. Even this very peace that comes to our mind during these verses is so penetrating that we feel the depth of the soul, the self. It is indescribable. The indistinct part of it is as beautiful as the distinct. In a Chinese painting, most of it is indistinct, but this does not make it in any way less valuable than a realistic photograph. And the free translation of verse 65 is as follows. There is nothing in this world we have not known at least once before as pure knowledge. When the same appears clothed in the garment of forms, it is thought of as separate entities not previously known. Who is there to wake up from his somnambulism and realize it is his own dear self that is seen as all these? It is very strange indeed.